Someone held onto their ticket stub from the most controversial basketball game in history that took place 53 years ago. It's the only one like it in the world, and the value of it today will blow your mind. See, it was September 9th, 1972, and the United States found themselves in the gold medal basketball game of the Munich Olympics against their rivals, the Soviet Union. This was during the Cold War. Tensions were super high. The sporting rivalry was at its peak, and all the pressure was on America to win, because we had not lost a single game at the Olympics going all the way back to 1936, 7 consecutive golds. Now, the US back then would send their best college kids that were about to go pro, and they should have had Bill Walton, possibly the greatest college basketball player ever. However, he turned down the invitation. So a dozen other Americans who had barely played together, only a few exhibitions, were going up against a Soviet team that had played 400 games together. Now, on top of all this, the Soviets overall were dominating the 72 Olympics. They got the most medals, 99, and with the men's basketball final being the last competition of the Olympics, the Soviet Union had to win this to get 50 golds. Now, from the second the game started, the USSR was leading. They were up 5 at halftime, and with 10 minutes remaining in the game, they were up by double digits. But then the US went on a crazy run by pressing, and with less than 10 seconds left, Hall of Famer Doug Collins steals the ball at midcourt, and going for a layup, he gets laid out. We were still down 1 with 3 seconds left. He was sent to the foul line with the whole world watching. He first drilled the first, and then sunk the second. But then things got really shady. It was a live ball off the second free throw. If the Soviets wanted to call a timeout, they had to do it beforehand. But after they inbounded the ball and it was clear they weren't going to score, the ref stopped the game. The Soviet coach was freaking out by the scores table, swearing that he tried to call a timeout before the second free throw to draw up a play. So that's why the game was paused and they were allowed to inbound again. However, remember, you are not allowed to call a timeout after a second free throw. So this was not an official timeout stop. The Soviets then, before the second inbound, were allowed to do an illegal sub. They brought on a new player to inbound the ball. Now, when the second inbound finally happened, the US stopped the Soviets again. They did not score, and the US started celebrating, thinking they won the gold. However, the refs then said, no, the game is not over. The clock malfunctioned. Let's do it again. And finally, on the third inbound, the Soviets scored and won. Now, after the game, the American players refused to accept their silver medals. They still haven't to this day. Now, essentially, everyone that was at the game watching threw out their ticket stub as they walked out. But this one miraculously has survived to today. It is one of only 7 PSA is graded, and it's the only one graded higher than a 3. Right now, it's being sold by our partner Golden. It's in their September Elite auction closing this Saturday, September 27th.